The moon was barely a sliver in the Afghan sky, hidden behind veils of cloud that drifted across the mountains. Shadows ruled the valley, long and jagged, swallowing the men who moved silently across its rocky floor. 12 U.S. Navy SEALs outfitted, with gear that weighed as heavy as the mission itself, crept forward one step at a time. Their boots pressed softly into the dirt, careful not to stir loose stones that might betray their movement. Night vision goggles painted the world in shades of eerie green. Even through the lenses, the land looked hostile, as if it were designed to trap them. The mission brief had sounded straightforward when they were back at the forward operating base. They were to infiltrate a compound deep within this valley and secure hard drives rumored to contain strategic plans for upcoming attacks. Intelligence had confirmed enemy presence, but suggested light resistance. Quick in, quick out, the briefing officer had said. But the men on the ground knew better. Nothing in this country ever went the way it was drawn on a whiteboard. They had been moving for hours, the valley walls pressing tighter the deeper. They went. Radio chatter had thinned to nothing but static. The satellite link failed as soon as they crossed into the basin, just as their communications sergeant had warned. Still, the team pressed on. The compound lay somewhere ahead, its location marked by ref GPS coordinates that seemed less reliable with every step. Their leader, Lieutenant Commander Howell, checked his wrist display. The green glow of his device cast faint light on his hardened face. He raised a gloved fist, halting the squad. The men crouched silently, forming a defensive semicircle, while Hale whispered updates into his headset, hoping the signal would push through the static. Nothing. Just a low hiss that mirrored the valley wind. He exhaled slowly, nodding to himself, then gave the signal to move again. Every sound carried. A loose rock tumbling down the slope. A night bird taking flight with startled wings. The faint clink of gear brushed hastily against stone. Each noise reminded the men that they were being hunted as much as they were hunting. Petty Officer First Class Ramirez muttered under his breath, "This place feels wrong." His partner, Corporal Jenkins, nudged him with an elbow. "Every place feels wrong when you're about to get shot at." Despite the dark humor, both men tightened their grips on their rifles. The team advanced another 100 yards before halting at the edge of a dry riverbed. The ravine stretched across their path like a wound in the earth. Crossing it would expose them under the faint moonlight, silhouetted for any watchful eyes along the ridges. Hale crouched low, scanning the cliffs. For long seconds, the world felt still, only the whisper of wind against stone. Then he signaled. One by one, they dashed across, boots crunching in the dry gravel, hearts pounding with every step. By the time the last man cleared the ravine, the first rounds cracked. Bullets pinged against rock, sharp echoes bouncing across the canyon. The team dove behind scattered boulders, returning fire in controlled bursts. The night erupted with tracers, red lines stitching the darkness. Enemy fighters had been waiting, concealed along the ridge. Ambush. Hollow cursed under his breath. Intel had been wrong again. Suppressing fire. Left ridge? He barked, voice cutting through chaos. Muzzle flashes lit the rocks like fireflies. SEAL rifles roared in response, sending controlled arcs of fire skyward. But the enemy was dug in, well-positioned, and far more numerous than expected. Within minutes, the firefight escalated. Mortar rounds whistled overhead, slamming into the valley floor with thunderous crashes. Dirt and stone rained down. One explosion landed close enough to send two operators sprawling, ears ringing. The medic, Chief Petty Officer Daniels, sprinted forward, dragging one man behind cover while applying a hasty tourniquet to the other. Hyle tried the radio again. "Overlord, this is Reaper Team. We're under heavy contact, pinned in the valley, requesting immediate support." Static screamed. Back, the signal lost. He switched channels, tried again, desperation creeping into his tone. Nothing. The valley had swallowed their voices whole. "God damn it," he muttered, slamming his fist against his vest. Around him, the men reloaded, faces set in grim determination. Minutes bled into an hour. Ammunition dwindled as they fought to hold position. Grenades exploded too close, sending shockwaves through the rocks. The air stank of cordite, sweat, and iron. Their world had become bursts of fire, followed by aching silence, then fire again. Ramirez crawled beside Hawley, his face streaked with dust. "We're not going to last out here, sir." Hawley didn't answer. He didn't have to. The truth was written across every exhausted face in the squad. When darkness deepened and the enemy pressed closer, whispers moved through the team like a current. No way out. "We're boxed in. We're finished." The words carried. Weight. In a place where courage was currency, admitting fear felt heavier than bullets. Yet in that valley, the whisper spread, impossible to contain. They were trained to fight until the last breath, but each man now wrestled with the quiet, gnawing realization that this mission could be the end. Still, none surrendered to despair completely. They were SEALs, forged for nights like this, shaped by training that broke lesser men. Hawley looked at them, Ramirez, Jenkins, Daniels, and the rest, and felt both pride and dread. He knew what they could endure, but he also knew the limits of flesh and blood against overwhelming firepower. The enemy seemed endless, shadows pouring. Down from ridges, rifles blazing, shouts echoing in languages the SEALs barely understood. Every movement betrayed coordination, suggesting this wasn't a ragtag ambush, but a planned trap. Hale's gut twisted. How much had intelligence missed? The medic called out. "He's losing blood fast. I need evac now." But evac wasn't coming. Not yet, maybe not ever. The valley felt smaller by the minute, walls pressing tighter, options shrinking. Ammunition was counted bullet by bullet. Water was rationed by single swigs. Every man carried the weight of brothers depending on him, but even brotherhood couldn't mask exhaustion. It was then, amid the chaos, that the whisper came again, soft but undeniable. "We're finished." No one argued this time. The words floated above them like a grim truth, hanging in the smoke-filled night. And yet, even as despair threatened, to smother hope, the SEALs did what they had always done. They prepared to fight. If this was to be their last stand, they would make it one their enemies never forgot. Hawley gritted his teeth, chambered another round, and raised his weapon. "Finished or not," he growled, "we hold until the end." The men tightened their grips, the whisper fading into silence, replaced by determination. Somewhere in the darkness, the sound of engines stirred faintly, though none of them noticed yet. The first mortar round had been bad. The second was worse. By the third, the SEALs understood what they were up against. The enemy wasn't just taking shots from cover. They had artillery support hidden somewhere in the ridges, each whistling. Descent tore at their nerves, followed by bone-shaking blasts that rattled teeth and hurled dirt into their lungs. Chief Petty Officer Daniels threw himself over his patient again as another shell exploded 30 yards away. Dust and shrapnel sprayed across his back like a shotgun blast. He hissed in pain, but kept his hands pressed firmly against the torn flesh of Petty Officer Miller, who lay pale and gasping beneath him. Blood seeped between Daniel's gloves, dark even under the green glow of night vision. Miller's leg was nearly shredded, a chunk of muscle missing from thigh to knee. "Stay with me, brother," Daniels muttered, his voice trembling despite years of battlefield medicine. He tore a strip of his own undershirt, reinforcing the field tourniquet he had tied minutes before. He couldn't stop the bleeding completely, but he could slow it. For now, That would have to be enough. A fresh barrage of enemy fire forced the squad lower behind their rocks. Lieutenant Commander Hale's rifle arced controlled bursts, his eyes narrowing on muzzle flashes that sparked across the ridges. It was like shooting at stars in the sky-bright points of light here, gone the next second. 2 o'clock. Suppress that ridge, he barked. Jenkins and Ramirez pivoted, pouring rounds into the hillside, the sound echoing across the valley like thunder trapped in a bottle. The enemy fire slackened for a heartbeat, then came back stronger, like waves, breaking against rocks. The firefight had been going for nearly an hour, though it felt like days. Ammunition was low too low. Each man now counted his shots, firing only when he was certain of a target. The luxury of suppressive fire was gone. Ramirez crawled toward Hall, voice tight. "Sir, I'm down to 2 mags." Hall didn't respond at first, eyes sweeping the yaw. Terrain, jaw set in stone. He heard Ramirez's words, but he didn't want to confirm them. Finally, he gave a single nod. "Make them count." On the far side, Petty Officer Clarkson checked his pouch. 1 mag left here. He didn't say it with fear. It was just a fact. Another number in the grim equation of survival. The SEALs were trained to fight through impossible odds. They had rehearsed last stand drills, fought mock battles where they were outnumbered 10 to 1. But training didn't carry the weight of the valley pressing down on them now. The cliffs loomed like prison walls, and every path out seemed covered by enemy guns. Another mortar landed closer too close. The explosion flung shrapnel that grazed Jenkins' arm, ripping through his sleeve. He hissed, clutching the wound as blood trickled down, though adrenaline numbed the pain. Daniels shouted, "Hold pressure, don't let go," before diving back to Miller's side. "Where the hell is our air cover?" Clarkson shouted, frustration breaking through the calm professionalism drilled into him. His voice cracked against the mountain walls, swallowed by chaos. Hawa slammed the transmit button again. "Overlord, this is Reaper Team. We are taking heavy contact, multiple wounded. Request immediate close air support. Danger close." His headset spat only static. He switched frequencies, tried again. Any station, this is Reaper. We're pinned, request support." The valley gave him nothing but silence. He pulled the headset away, jaw clenching so tight it hurt. His men looked to him for answers, for reassurance. He had none. The silence from command was heavier than the gunfire. The medic's hands were slick with blood now, but Miller's breathing grew shallower. "I can't hold him like this," Daniel snapped. He fumbled for morphine, then stopped himself. Pain relief might ease Miller's suffering, but it would slow his already weak pulse. Every decision felt like gambling with a brother's life. The firefight ebbed for a moment, only to flare again as the insurgents probed closer. Shouts in Pashto rang across the cliffs, followed by bursts of machine gun fire. The enemy wasn't afraid. They knew they had the upper hand. Hale's mind raced. Options spiraled through his head, each more desperate than the last. A breakout uphill would be suicidal. Holding their position meant slowly bleeding out of ammo until the enemy overran them. Waiting for evac seemed foolish when no signal reached. Beyond the canyon walls, for the first time in years, he felt the weight of defeat pressing into his chest. His men's faces blurred in the smoke. Ramirez firing controlled bursts, Jenkins gritting his teeth as he wrapped his own arm. Daniels hunched over Miller, Clarkson shouting warnings whenever muzzle flashes crept too close. These men trusted him. And here, in this valley, he was running out of ways to keep that trust alive. The whispers began small. A mutter here, a half-joke there. "We're boxed in. Ammo's gone. We're finished." They weren't said with panic. Not. At first, they were murmurs of realism, the cold acknowledgement of soldiers who had seen too many battles to deny the truth. But whispers have power. They spread. They grew. Soon, every man heard them, whether spoken aloud or not. Ramirez finally gave it voice, soft but clear enough that Halle caught it. "We're finished, sir." Hale's stomach twisted. He wanted to bark back, to crush the thought before it took root, but he didn't, because he felt it too. The truth clawed at him with icy hands. They were finished. Yet seals were bred for defiance, not surrender. Halle tightened his grip on his rifle and scanned the ridges again. His men might believe they were finished, but as long as they breathed, there was still one choice left: fight. He leaned close to Ramirez, his voice a low growl. "We're not finished until every one of us is gone. Not before." The younger man met his gaze. Something flickered in his eyes, respect, maybe, or stubbornness reawakening. More rounds cracked, forcing them down. Mortar boomed again, shaking the valley floor. Miller coughed, blood spraying from his lips, and Daniels cursed under his breath, hands trembling. The night dragged on, a cycle of noise and silence, gunfire and whispers. Time lost meaning. They were trapped in the valley, shadows moving against shadows, life measured in magazines and heartbeats. Somewhere far above, the faintest hum began to stir, a vibration carried on the night air. None of them noticed it yet. Their world was still the valley, still the weight of inevitability pressing down. And still, amid all the chaos, the whisper lingered, haunting every man. "We're finished." The klaxon split the night. Captain Cara Lewis was already half awake in the dim barracks, boots beside her cot, flight suit still half-zipped. Scramble alerts didn't wait for pleasantries, and after 5 years of combat tours, her body reacted before her mind did. She swung her legs down, jammed her feet into boots, and grabbed her helmet from the chair. The cold Afghan air rushed in as she sprinted into the corridor, heart pounding not with fear, but with the familiar rush of purpose. "Lewis, Valkyrie!" the crew chief shouted as she burst onto the flight line. Immediate scramble seal. Team pinned, coordinates inbound. Her pace quickened. Adrenaline replaced the last remnants of sleep, sharpening her focus like steel. She had flown more sorties than she could count, but the word SEAL Team pinned carried a weight few things could. On the ground, in the shadows of mountains, those operators lived and died on timing. Every second she delayed was another second. They might not have. The A-10 Warthog loomed before her, ugly to the untrained eye, beautiful to those who understood its purpose. Twin engines jutted out like blunt shoulders. The broad wings carried hard points loaded with missiles, rockets, and bombs. But the heart of the beast, the reason Kara loved this machine, was the massive GAU-8 Avenger cannon nestled under its nose. A weapon so powerful the aircraft itself was designed around it. Other jets were sleek, built for speed and elegance. The Warthog was none of those things. It was a brute, armored like a tank, slow and low-flying. But for troops trapped in the dirt, the Warthog was salvation. It could loiter for hours, soak up damage that would tear other aircraft apart, and deliver firepower with surgical precision. The soldiers called it the Angel of Death. To Kara, it was simply Valkyrie. Her crew chief handed her the latest intel printout as she climbed the ladder into the cockpit. Not much detail. Seals in contact, valley terrain, cones unreliable. They're boxed in tight. Kara scanned the paper. The grid coordinates were vague, blurred by interference and weak relays. No altitude readouts, no clear enemy strength. Just a red circle on the map, marked heavy contact. She felt her jaw tighten. Going in blind was dangerous, but hesitation was deadlier for the men waiting below. "Birds green," the crew chief shouted over the roar, as ground crews disconnected lines and stepped back. Loadout checked, guns primed, tanks full. She's all yours. Copy that, Kara said, her voice calm, steady. She lowered. Her helmet, oxygen mask snapping into place, HUD flickering alive across her visor. The cockpit's glow wrapped around her, familiar as her own skin. She began her checklist by muscle memory, fingers flying across switches, toggling systems alive one by one. Engines whined, then roared, sending vibrations through the tarmac. The warthog came alive beneath her, like a beast stirring from sleep. Gauges steadied, navigation systems blinked green, and the Avenger cannon hummed faintly as its circuits armed. Kara exhaled slowly, centering herself. Her wingman's voice crackled in her headset. Valkyrie, this is Reaper 2. You taking point? Affirmative, Kara replied. Stay high and wide. I'll go low. There was a pause. Roger that? Be careful down there. Kara almost smiled. Careful wasn't an option. Not for what she was about to do. The control tower cleared her for takeoff, and with a steady push of throttle, Valkyrie surged down the runway. The nose lifted, wheels left the earth, and the world below fell away. She leveled into the dark Afghan. Sky, twin engines leaving trails invisible in the night. The mountains stretched ahead like jagged teeth. She knew those valleys too well. The way sound echoed unpredictably. How signals vanished like ghosts. How enemy fire came from nowhere and everywhere. Countless helicopters had been shot down in those same corridors. Their wreckage left as grim reminders of how unforgiving this terrain was. But the A-10 thrived where others faltered. Her HUD blinked with the grid coordinates. 30 clicks ahead. She would be over the valley in minutes. Alone in the cockpit, the roar of engines faded into background noise. Her thoughts drifted briefly, uninvited, to the faces of men she'd saved before. Grunts in trenches who had looked up at her low passes and whispered prayers they'd never admit later. Soldiers who had written "thank you" on the sides of their helmets before boarding helicopters home. And those she hadn't reached in time faces she still saw in her dreams. Not tonight, she whispered into the mask. She adjusted, her throttle dropping lower. The earth rose beneath her wings, jagged ridges narrowing around her path. Radar struggled in the valleys, and she relied on instinct, eyes scanning every contour of the land. Her pulse quickened, not from fear, but from the razor-sharp focus that came only when lives depended on her precision. Reaper team, this is Valkyrie. I'm en route, 15 mics out, she transmitted, even though she knew the odds of reception were slim. Hold tight, I'm coming, Static hissed back. She wasn't surprised. She spoke anyway, as though the men could somehow feel her words carried in the air. Another memory surfaced her first deployment years earlier. She had been green, nervous, voice trembling over the radio. A SEAL on the ground, calm under fire, had said words that stuck with her. Doesn't matter if we hear you. Just get here. That sound in the sky is enough. The thought fueled her as she approached the valley. Her sensors lit up with faint signatures heat blooms scattered along the ridges. Too many for a small patrol. Kara's stomach tightened. The SEALs weren't facing light resistance. They were surrounded by a force at least triple what Intel had briefed. She flipped switches, arming her weapons. The HUD flickered with target designations, boxes highlighting heat signatures, rockets, sidewinders, the Avenger. Tools of precision destruction, all waiting at her fingertips. She dropped lower still, wings slicing the treetops, leaves, and dust scattering in her wake. Warnings flashed across her console. Altitude low. Terrain proximity alert. She silenced them. Machines couldn't understand what the SEALs needed. Her wingman's voice cut in again. Valkyrie, you're skimming. The trees. You'll eat dirt if you sneeze wrong. I've got it, she replied, her voice firm, unshaken. They need me low. Silence followed. No argument. He knew better than to challenge her when lives hung in the balance. The valley opened. Ahead, dark and hostile. She could see flashes, now muzzle bursts, sparkling like fireflies, arcs of tracers painting the air. The ground itself seemed to pulse with violence. Somewhere below those sparks, 12 men were clinging to life. Kara's grip tightened on the stick. She banked hard, lining up her first approach. Her eyes narrowed behind the visor. Hang on, boys, she whispered. Your Valkyrie's here. The beast under her growled, hungry to speak. The GAU-8 cannon spun up with a mechanical whir that was less sound than promise. A promise of thunder that would soon shake the valley floor. The SEALs hadn't heard her yet, but they would. They always did. A valley below was chaos. From Kara's vantage, it was a cauldron of muzzle flashes and tracer fire, streaks of red and green carving the dark like angry comets. The SEALs' infrared strobes were faint, blinking desperately from a rocky outcropping near the valley floor. Around them, hostile heat signatures swarmed like wolves circling prey. Kara's breathing slowed, her world narrowing to the targeting reticle. She lined up her first run, heart hammering with the weight of a dozen lives. Avenger armed, she whispered. Her thumb pressed the trigger. The GAU-8 Avenger cannon roared to life. It wasn't just sound. It was fury given voice 7. Barrels spinning at 3,900 rounds per minute, belching a stream of depleted uranium shells the size of milk bottles. The sound was unmistakable, a guttural blurt that shook the very air. Below, the night lit up. A line of fire ripped across the gel. Ridgeline, shredding enemy positions with surgical brutality. Explosions blossomed where Kara had walked her rounds. Trees splintered, rock shattered, and hostile figures vanished in bursts of dust and blood. The SEALs froze for a heartbeat, disbelief written across their dirt-smeared faces. Then realization hit. Warthog! Someone shouted over the gunfire. That's a hog. We're not dead yet. A surge of hope rippled through the pinned team. Kara pulled hard, banking up through a hail of small arms tracers. Bullets cracked past her canopy, but the hog shrugged them off. Its titanium bathtub of armor was built for this very dance. Warning lights flickered, but nothing serious. Not yet. Her headset crackled, barely legible. Valkyrie, this is Reaper, marking target, Northeast Ridge. The SEALs' voices were broken by static, but Kara caught the gist. She banked again, eyes locking on faint eye flashes, signaling their intended mark. She dove low, so low her wings clipped branches. Trees bent and snapped in her wake as she lined up the Northeast Ridge. Rockets armed, tone steady. Fox 3, she called, loosing a pod of rockets. The valley erupted. White-hot explosions thundered across the ridge, tearing bunkers apart. Enemy fire faltered as smoke billowed. On the ground, Master Chief Daniels pressed his team flat against the earth as shockwaves rolled over them. Rocks and dirt rained down, but every blast felt like salvation. The men looked at each other, wide-eyed, faces streaked with mud and sweat. She's tearing them apart, whispered Petty Officer King, his rifle clutched in trembling hands. God bless that pilot. Don't bless her yet, Daniels growled, though even his hardened voice carried awe. She's just getting started. Above, Kara circled back, sweat dripping beneath her helmet. Her HUD flashed warnings, enemy man-pads, man-portable air defense systems activating. Shoulder-launched missiles streaked upward, hunting her heat signature. Countermeasures, deploy, she barked. Flares shot from her wingtips, dazzling. The night. Missiles veered, confused by the sudden blooms of heat, exploding harmlessly in the distance. "Not tonight," Kara muttered, jaws clenched. She dropped again, this time slower, daring the enemy to show themselves. She wanted them firing, wanted to mark every muzzle flash, every launcher. And they obliged. Dozens of flashes bloomed from the ridges. Her reticle danced. Thumb down. The Avenger sang again. BRRRT. The night answered with thunder. The ridge lit up like a struck match. Enemy fighters dove for cover, some too slow. The SEALs, huddled tight in their shrinking perimeter, felt the earth tremble with every line. Kara carved into the valley walls. Daniels lifted his head just enough to glimpse her silhouette, a gray beast streaking between treetops, fire spitting from its nose. For the first time in hours, his lips twitched into a grim smile. "Valkyrie," he whispered, "you beautiful devil." But the battle was far from over. As Kara pulled into another climb, her sensors shrieked, multiple SAM sites activating. Deeper in the valley, bigger than man-pads. Radar guided. Her wingman's voice cut in sharp. "Valkyrie, you're painting 3 locks on your 6. Break left." She yanked the stick, muscles straining as G-forces pressed her into the seat. Missiles streaked past where she'd been seconds earlier, detonating in fiery blossoms. The hog shuddered under the pressure. Alarms wailing. "Reaper 2, suppress." "Those SAMs," she barked. "On it," came the reply, as her wingman loosed precision ordnance from higher altitude. Explosions rippled across the valley floor, silencing 2 of the sites. The third, however, remained active, its radar pulse, hammering Kara's instruments. "I'll handle it," Kara growled. She dove, skimming the treetops again, hunting the SAM's telltale glow. There a bunker tucked against the slope, operators scrambling. She thumbed a Maverick missile live. Lock tone screamed in her headset. Fox 2. The Maverick streaked free, a lance of white fire. It slammed into the bunker, detonating with bone-rattling force. The third SAM vanished in a geyser of flame. Below, the SEALs roared in ragged relief, though the fight around them still raged. Enemy fighters regrouped, pressing harder, desperate to overwhelm before Kara could bleed them out. Bullets and mortar rained on the team's position. Daniels grabbed his radio, voice raw. "Valkyrie, they're closing. If you've got anything left, now's the time." Kara heard it clear this time. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. She banked again, rolling Valkyrie onto her belly, and unleashed hell. The Avenger tore the earth open, a line of destruction stitched so close to the SEALs that dirt sprayed over their helmets. Yet not a single friendly was touched. Kara's precision was unreal, her rounds, carving enemies from mere meters away, cutting a shield between the trapped operators and the advancing tide. On the ground, King laughed hysterically through tears, firing bursts into the chaos. "She's painting us a wall. She's painting us a freaking wall of fire." Danielle's jaw tightened, awe and relief mixing. "And we're walking out of." Here behind it. Above, Kara's eyes blazed behind her visor. Every pull of the trigger was for the men below. Every pass was a promise. "You are not finished. Not tonight." Her hog thundered low one last time, the valley shuddering under its roar. The SEALs, bloodied but alive, felt something stir deep in their chests. Hope wasn't just a word anymore. It had a sound, and it was the sound of thunder breaking the night. The valley was no longer silent. Every ridge, every ravine, every jagged rock now carried the scars of Kara's fury. Smoke poured upward in black columns. Torn trees burned with crackling flames, and the ground quaked under lingering aftershocks of her cannon runs. Yet, despite the devastation, the fight wasn't over. If anything, it was escalating. The enemy had numbers, far more than the SEALs or Kara could immediately crush. What they lacked in precision, they compensated for in persistence. And now, under the rolling clouds of dust and flame, they were adapting. Daniel's voice rasped through the combs, half broken by static. "Valkyrie, you've bought us breathing room. We're moving." Kara's grip tightened on the stick. She angled Valkyrie low again, eyes hunting for the IR strobes blinking faintly through the haze. There the seals were shifting, crawling from their jagged cover to a sloping gulch that offered a sliver of concealment. It was risky, but standing still meant death. Above the chaos, her wingman's voice cut sharp. "Valkyrie, heavy signatures moving south ridge. Could be armor." Her stomach nodded. Armor meant only one thing: enemy reinforcements had rolled in with vehicles designed to survive small arms, maybe even shoulder-fired rockets. And if they had tracked guns or heavier missiles, the seals wouldn't last minutes in the open. Kara clicked her mic. "Reaper 2, maintain overwatch. I'm going down their throat." She banked sharply, nose dropping toward the southern ridge. Trees whipped by beneath her wings, branches scraping like claws against steel. Her HUD painted moving heat signatures large, boxy. Not trucks. Not infantry. Tanks. Her thumb flicked. A switch. Mavericks hot. The missile tone filled her headset, shrill and eager. She locked the first target, a T-72, its turret grinding toward the valley floor. Fox 2. The Maverick streaked downward, a fiery lance in the night. It smashed into the tank, detonating in a ball of shrapnel and fire. The turret blew free, cartwheeling into the trees. But Kara had no time to savor the kill. Another tank lurched forward, gun tracking her movement. She juked right, flares spitting as the turret belched a shell skyward. The round tore through. Branches behind her, exploding in a concussive shockwave that rattled her bones. Her jaw clenched. "You want me? You'll have to earn it." She looped wide, coming in from behind the ridge. Another Maverick locked on. Another kill. Below, the seals sprinted in short bursts, weapons snapping to cover as they leapt from rock to rock. Mortar fire slammed behind them, the ground exploding in showers of dirt. Every step forward was stolen in blood and sweat. King stumbled, collapsing, into the mud with a strangled curse. Daniels grabbed him by the collar, yanking him up. "Move your damn legs, King. She's clearing us a path, don't waste it." King staggered forward, teeth bared against the pain of shrapnel lodged in his thigh. The others closed in around him, firing bursts to cover their retreat. Above, Kara's HUD flashed again, more locks, heavier now. Her sensors screamed. Missile. 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 Her wingman's warning barely reached her before the streaks cut across the sky. 3 radar-guided SAMs fired in near unison from deeper in the valley. Braking. Kara barked, wrenching the stick. The hog groaned. Under the strain, metal shrieking as she pulled low and hard, trees blurring inches from her canopy. Flares spat out in cascading patterns, dazzling the night sky. 2 missiles veered off, confused, detonating harmlessly in the hills. The third didn't. It stayed true, its warhead closing fast. Kara yanked the throttle, nose diving into the ravine. The missile followed, snarling like a predator on her tail. Her breath came sharp and fast. At the last second, she rolled hard left, scraping the valley wall so close her wingtip sheared bark from a pine. She fired chaff, clouds of metallic strips filling the air. The missile burst through the chaff cloud and lost her. It detonated against the rock wall behind her, the shockwave slamming Valkyrie sideways. Warning lights erupted across her panel. "Damage?" she spat. Her systems blinked, left wing peppered, hydraulics sluggish, but she was still flying. "Still here," she hissed into the mic. "Barely," her wingman shot back. "You can't take another like that." "Doesn't matter. They're still on the ground, and I'm not leaving them. On the valley floor, the seals saw the explosion ripple the mountainside. For a breathless second, they thought she'd been hit. Their hearts sank, legs faltering. Then Valkyrie reappeared through the smoke, wings steady, cannon blazing anew. "Goddamn angel," muttered Daniels, pushing his men forward. Kara stitched another pass across the ridgeline, bullets chewing into machine gun nests that had begun to pin the seals' path. Dirt geysered upward, screens cut short, and the hostile advance slowed again. The team finally reached the gulch, a shallow crease in the earth offering some concealment. They collapsed into it, gasping, weapons clutched tight. Status. Daniels barked. Pings hit shrapnel, legs torn up. Munition counts low, 3 mags left. Comes still crap. No higher support inbound. Daniels clenched his fists. Without Kara, this valley would be their grave. "Stay tight," he growled. "We follow her shadow until the end." Above, Kara circled, sweat rolling down her temple. Her oxygen mask pressed tight, breaths fogging. She knew she was running low on fuel, running hotter than she should. But she also knew the look of men cornered, and she refused to let them fall. "Reaper 2, she said, steady despite the tremor in her limbs. "We're not leaving until their boots are out of that valley." Her wingman hesitated. "Copy, Valkyrie." "Till the last round." Kara rolled in again, her hog thundering. Beneath the canopy of trees, cannon shrieking into the dark. For the seals, every burst of her fire was more than destruction. It was a heartbeat, a signal that life still pulsed through their veins. Each BRRRT bought them another step, another breath, another chance to claw toward survival. The night was far from over, but for the first time, the seals weren't whispering they were finished. They were whispering something else. "We're walking out of here." And they believed it. The valley was still alive with fire. Smoke roiled in thick curtains, twisting around shattered trees and smoldering craters. Echoes of explosions rattled the mountains, bouncing off stone until it felt as though the world itself groaned in agony. For the SEALs crawling through the gulch, every heartbeat was measured against the roar of Kara's A-10 overhead. She was the one thread holding their survival together. And that thread was fraying fast. Inside Valkyrie's cockpit, alarms blinked. Like angry eyes, her fuel gauge dipped lower with every pass. Ammunition counters glowed red, fewer than 2 belts left for the GAU-8 cannon. Only 1 Maverick remained on her hardpoints. Kara's voice rasped through the comms. "Status, SEAL team?" Daniels, crouched in the mud, wiped grime from his mic. "Still moving. King's dragging, but we're on our feet." He paused, then added grimly, "Enemies regrouping. Looks heavier than before." "Copy. I'll thin them," Kara said, though her eyes flicked again to her dwindling readouts. Her wingman broke in. "Valkyrie, your tank's near bingo. You push it further. You won't make it back." Kara's jaw clenched. "I'm not leaving them," silence answered. In the brotherhood of the sky, defiance wasn't unusual. But this was different. Kara wasn't just risking her jet. She was chaining her fate to the men on the ground. Below, the enemy shifted tactics. No longer reckless, they were corralling. Mortar bracketed the gulch, forcing the seals inward. Heavy caliber fire chattered from dug-in positions on the ridgeline. Then came the sound none of the seals mistook engines. Steel against earth. Tracks grinding. Tanks again. More this time. Daniel's blood ran cold. "Valkyrie, armor inbound North Ridge. Estimate 3, maybe 4. Kara's heart hammered. 1 Maverick left. Barely enough to crack a single tank if luck favored her. Her fingers trembled on the throttle. Understood. Marking targets. The tanks emerged like monsters from the smoke, turrets swiveling down toward the gulch. For the SEALs, pinned and exhausted, it was a death sentence. Karadov. The Maverick screamed free, locking onto the lead tank. A heartbeat later, the world split in fire. The T-72 erupted, turret launching skyward in a blossom of steel. Splash one, Kara growled. But 3 remained. She rolled hard, banking along the ridge. With no missiles left, her only weapon was the GAU-8. Against infantry, it was annihilation. Against tanks, it was desperation. Still, desperation was all she had. Her hog thundered low, cannon bellowing. Tungsten rounds ripped into the second tank, chewing across its turret and tracks. Sparks showered. Armor peeled. The tank screeched. To a halt, crippled but not dead. The other 2 tanks swiveled their guns toward the sound of her roar. Daniel's voice crackled in panic. "They're sighting you." Kara pulled, but too late. 1 tank spat fire. The shell passed beneath her wing by less than 20 feet, detonating in the trees. The shockwave punched Valkyrie sideways. Warnings flared across her console. Fuel lines coughed. Hydraulic pressure bled away. Damage, left stabilizer. She barked, wrestling the stick. Her wingman's voice strained. "Valkyrie, you're barely in the sky." "RTB now." Kara's knuckles whitened. "Negative. They're still moving. I don't leave my own." Below, the SEALs ran. Daniels pushed King ahead, shouting for the others to cover. The gulch was turning into a grave. Mortar walked closer. Shells erupting in fountains of dirt and steel. Each detonation rattled teeth and bones. 2 minutes, and we're buried. King gasped. Daniel's eyes burned. "Then we move in one." Above them, Kara circled again. Every system screamed. At her, but she shoved Valkyrie's nose down. The crippled tank still burned on the ridge, but the 2 others pressed forward, guns ready to erase the SEALs. Kara whispered to herself, voice cracking under strain. "Come on, girl. 1 more run." She pressed the trigger. The GAU-8 roared. Like a god of war, spitting fire into the night. Bullets hammered the 3rd tank's flank, splitting its armor. The engine block burst in flames. The machine lurched, shuddered, then froze, fire belching through its hatches. But the 4th tank fired back. Kara saw the muzzle flash, saw death streaking toward her. She pulled. Too late. The shell grazed her wing root, ripping metal like paper. The hog bucked violently, alarm shrieking. The left wing sagged, smoke streaming from ruptured hydraulics. "Valkyrie!" Her wingman cried. Kara gasped, forcing control. Still? Flying. The SEALs, scrambling from the gulch, stared upward. They had seen jets shot down before. They had seen them spiral into fireballs. But Kara's hog clawed upward through the smoke, refusing gravity, refusing death. "Angel's still with us," muttered Daniels. His men staggered faster, legs burning. But Kara knew she had little left. Her ammo counter blinked empty. The GAU-8 was dry. Fuel dipped into the red, a blinking curse. And still the last tank moved, turret swinging toward the SEAL's escape path. Kara's vision blurred with sweat. She had nothing left, nothing but the hog itself. Her breath slowed. A calm settled, strange and absolute. She thought of her father's voice when she'd first climbed into a cockpit, whispering, "If you can't save yourself, save someone else. That's the point." Kara clicked her mic, voice quiet but steady. "Daniels, get your men clear?" Daniels froze. Mud streaked across his face. He heard something in her tone that hollowed his chest. "Kara, no." She cut him off. "That's in order." She shoved the throttle forward. Valkyrie surged, wounded but furious, engines howling as she dove straight at the last tank. The enemy crew barely had time to adjust. The turret turned. Too slow. Kara smiled, faint but unbroken. For the fallen. She released her last flare pattern, the sky erupting in brilliance. Then she slammed Valkyrie down in a near-suicidal dive. At the last instant, she pulled up just enough, the hog's belly scraping the earth, wingtip shearing trees, and her landing gear clipped the tank. The collision tore through the turret, ripping it clean. Fire erupted as the tank detonated. Valkyrie screamed upward, battered but alive. Inside the cockpit, Kara's hands trembled. Panels sparked. Engines whined, coughing smoke. But she was still aloft, barely. Her wingman's voice cracked in awe. "You insane?" "Magnificent bastard." Kara's lips curled into a weak grin. "Told you, not leaving them." Below, the seals stumbled free of the gulch. They turned, faces lit by the inferno of the destroyed tank. For the first time in hours, the valley wasn't their tomb. It was their witness. Daniels pressed his fist to his chest, staring skyward. "She's the reason we'll walk out." The team limped onward, shadows vanishing into the tree line, while above them, Valkyrie wobbled on battered wings. Her fuel. Gauge screamed empty. Her hog bled smoke like a dying beast. But Kara refused to fall. Not yet. Not until she knew they were safe. The mountains were burning. From the cockpit of her mangled A-10, Kara could see the valley wreathed in pillars of fire, smoke bleeding into the midnight sky. Her aircraft rattled like a dying creature, controls sluggish, alarms blaring. Every breath she took tasted of burnt wiring and desperation. Fuel gauge, empty. Ammunition, gone. Systems, critical. But Kara's eyes locked onto one thing. The seals, silhouettes, scrambling through the tree line far below. They were bloodied, half-broken, yet moving. Still alive. "Daniels!" Kara rasped over the coms, her voice raw. "Report." "We're clear of the gulch," Daniels replied, panting, but enemies still chasing. "Drones in the air, heavy pursuit squads on our 6. If they pin us before extraction." His voice trailed. He didn't need to finish. Kara adjusted her headset, sweat dripping down her temple. "Copy. Keep heading west. I'll cover." Her wingman cut in, horrified. "Kara, you're running on fumes. If you push that hog another 5 minutes, she's dropping out of the sky." "I'll keep her up," Kara snapped, tightening her grip on the stick. Her voice softened. "Long enough." The hog moaned as she banked low. Beneath her, muzzle flashes sparked in the forest. Enemy squads were in hot pursuit, cutting through branches as they closed on the limping seals. Kara had nothing left to shoot. No missiles. No cannon rounds. Her war machine was, by definition, spent. But war wasn't always about what you had. Sometimes it was about refusing to quit. "Valkyrie," Daniel's voice cracked through the static. "They've got eyes on us. We can't outrun them." Kara's jaw set. "Then you don't have to." She dropped Valkyrie lower, treetops whipping beneath her torn wings. The hog howled like a wounded beast, its shadow streaking across the forest. Enemy fighters on the ground looked up, startled. They had expected the angel of death to vanish. Instead, she came for them again. Kara slammed the throttle. Her engines coughed black smoke, but responded just enough. She roared over the enemy squads at near treetop height. A sonic punch of her pass scattered them, men diving for cover. Daniels shouted into the coms, seizing the moment. "Move!" "Push west." The seals surged forward, adrenaline giving their broken bodies new fire. Kara circled, fighting her crippled controls. The hog's left wing dipped dangerously, hydraulics barely holding. She yanked it back, muscles straining, whispering through gritted teeth. "Not yet. Stay with me." Then she saw them. Shapes in the night sky, fast-moving. Drones, not reconnaissance. Anymore, but armed, each carrying small rockets and guided munitions. They weren't after her. They were hunting the SEALs. Contact, airborne. 3 bogies inbound, bearing south, her wingman warned. Kara's heart hammered. She had no missiles to intercept. No cannon to shred them, just herself. She clicked her mic. Daniels, heads down. Then she dove. The hog screamed, engines rattling, smoke trailing like a funeral banner. She barreled straight at the drones, massive wings slicing the night. The enemy pilots tried to adjust, but Kara flew her crippled. Beast with the fury of someone who had nothing left to lose. The first drone clipped her wingtip and disintegrated in sparks. The second launched a rocket, too close. Kara jerked sideways. The blast rocked her hog, scorching paint, rattling rivets loose. Warning lights exploded across her console. "Valkyrie, eject," her wingman begged. But Kara grit her teeth, eyes locked on the third drone. She pushed her hog nose up, climbing just enough before cutting throttle, letting the drone overshoot. Then she dropped the nose and slammed down on it. The hog's reinforced fuselage sheared through the drone's frame. Metal screeched, sparks flared. Both tumbled, but Kara yanked with everything she had. The hog shuddered but leveled. Alive, barely. 2 down. Kara rasped, sweat stinging her eyes. Her wingman swore over the combs. "You're a madwoman." The SEALs had seen it too. Daniels barked orders, spurring his men onward. But even as they staggered west, the ground trembled again. Engines. Heavy ones. Kara's stomach twisted as she spotted headlights through the smoke. More armored transports. Not tanks, but enough to deliver a small army into the SEAL's path. Daniel swore. "They're cutting us off." Kara's brain raced. She had no ordnance, no fuel to climb and dive again. But she had the hog itself. A warplane that had been built to take punishment and still deliver. "Copy, I'll block them," she said, voice iron. Her wingman snapped, "You won't survive another pass. Doesn't matter." Kara dropped Valkyrie into a near-suicidal dive. The hog screamed as it descended, belly glowing from heat, smoke trailing like a comet. She skimmed the tree line, engines howling, aiming not to destroy but to terrify. She roared directly over the transports, less than 30 feet above them. The shockwave was apocalyptic. Trees bent, soldiers threw themselves flat, and one of the transports swerved, tires shredding as it careened into a ditch. The others braked, bottlenecked, their formation broken. Daniels didn't waste it. Now. Push through. The SEALs sprinted, bullets whistling past, but they had a gap, carved by Kara's insanity. Her hog clawed upward again, groaning like it was dying in her hands. Kara slammed the console with her fist, snarling, "Stay with me, Valkyrie." The aircraft shook violently. Her left engine sputtered, then died. One engine left. Fuel tank nearly dry. Altitude dropping. "Valkyrie, you're one flameout away from the dirt," her wingman warned. "I know," she whispered. Her voice cracked. "But I'm not leaving them." Below, Daniels and his men finally broke free of the forest edge. Through the smoke, they saw it. The extraction zone. A clearing where a rescue bird could land, if Kara could keep the enemy away long enough. But the battlefield wasn't done. More headlights flared behind them. Enemy reinforcements surged, infantry spreading like shadows across the tree line. Mortar arced overhead. And in the sky, 2 fresh drones screamed in from the east, guided by radar pings locked on the SEALs. Daniels cursed. "We'll never make it." Kara looked at her console. 1 flare pod, almost empty. A handful of countermeasures left. It wasn't enough, unless she used herself as bait. Daniels, she said softly. When I light the sky, you run. Don't stop. Daniels froze. Kara, do it. You want your men home, you move. She shoved the throttle. Her last engine roared, coughing, pushing the hog forward. She turned directly toward the drones, dragging every radar ping onto herself. Warning screamed. Target locks flared across her HD. She popped the last of her flares, the sky erupting with fire. Heat signatures blossomed like a false sun. The drones locked on instantly, missiles streaking toward her, away from the SEALs. Kara gritted her teeth and banked hard. The hog groaned, frame cracking, metal screaming. One missile clipped her tail, tearing half of it away. The second detonated just behind her, rocking the cockpit with force that rattled her skull. Alarms wailed. Her HUD went black. The hog nosed down, shuddering. Daniels shouted in horror, "Kara!" But through the static, her voice came back, ragged but alive. "Keep running." Her wingman's voice cracked. "You can't hold her." "I'll hold her long enough." Smoke poured from the hog's carcass, but Kara forced her stick, leveling just enough to drag the crippled plane westward. Every second she stayed in the air was another second the SEALs gained. Below, Daniels and his men burst into the clearing. Exhausted, broken, but there. Overhead, Kara's hog limped like a wounded bird, dragging enemy fire onto herself. Daniels pressed his fist to his chest, whispering hoarsely, "She's not buying us time. She's buying us life." And above them, Valkyrie bled smoke into the heavens, wings still refusing to fold. The clearing ahead shimmered in faint moonlight, jagged from scars of battle. Smoke curled in thick ribbons, trailing from destroyed vehicles and scorched earth. The SEALs staggered into the open. Mud and blood streaked across their faces, every breath ragged. They were alive, but only barely. Above, the hog screamed through the night, a wounded predator refusing to fall. Valkyrie's left wing sagged at a dangerous angle, sparking with every control input. Her engines coughed, and fuel sloshed like molten metal in the tanks. Kara's hands were raw from gripping the stick. Every second counted. Every second she stayed airborne was another second. Her team had to reach the clearing. Daniels. She rasped into the comm, voice steady despite exhaustion. "You're almost there." "Don't stop. We're moving." He shouted back, signaling the men to push harder. Every foot forward was a battle against their own weariness and the persistent fire raining down from the enemy. The enemy had regrouped. From the tree line, mortar rounds screamed overhead. Infantry advanced, shouting, firing, determined not to let the SEALs escape. And in the air, one last drone screeched, missiles primed and locking onto the glint of the clearing below. Kara's HUD flashed warnings. Systems were failing. Hydraulic pressure bled off. The left wing was barely holding. The hog shuddered violently with every gust and gunfire impact. Her throat dry, Kara muttered to herself, "Not yet. Not until they're safe." She dove. Every move was calculated. She drew the drone's attention, skimming trees, weaving through the canyon, forcing the enemy to track her instead of the SEALs. Her canopy reflected tracer fire, explosions erupting around her, yet she remained focused. One wrong move and the hog would tumble into the forest below. Daniels and his team saw it. Their angel of death, battered but unyielding, holding the sky open. They surged forward, leaping over shattered trunks, slipping through mud, one agonizing step at a time. Almost there. Daniels shouted, "Keep moving." Kara banked low, cannon dry, engine sputtering, her hog groaning like a beast at death's door. She didn't fire. She didn't need to. Her presence was enough. The enemy hesitated, caught between fear and awe as the sky itself seemed alive with rage and fury. But the last drone would not yield. Its guided missile arced down, seeking its target. Kara saw it streak toward the clearing. Her heart clenched. She gritted her teeth, yanking Valkyrie sideways, pulling a near impossible maneuver. The missile slammed into a hillside, throwing a shockwave that rattled the hog's frame. Sparks and shrapnel peppered her fuselage. Smoke poured from the left engine. The canopy steamed over from the heat. Warnings blared, flashing red and shrieking in protest. Kara ignored it. She had no choice. Below, the SEALs reached the extraction point, a narrow, uneven clearing barely long enough for a helicopter. A CH-47 Chinook had touched down blades, thrashing violently, rotor wash tearing dirt and debris into a chaotic storm. Daniels barked orders. "Load! Load now!" The SEALs sprinted, dragging King and the wounded along. Mortar fire slammed near the edge of the clearing. Enemy soldiers pressed forward, but Kara's hog carved a path through the night. Every dive, every roar, every banking turn kept the attackers pinned and hesitant. Kara's wingtips sparked as she scraped a tree again, the hog groaning under her strain. Fuel warning blared, empty. Systems failing. She didn't care. Not until the last SEAL was aboard. Daniels reached the ramp of the Chinook, hauling King. In first, the rest of the team followed, bullets ricocheting from trees and hitting the clearing around them. Kara banked low, a massive shadow over the extraction zone. Her hog's engines coughed, smoke trailing thick and black, but she stayed between the SEALs and the enemy. Every second counted. Every heartbeat was precious. "Go, go!" Danielle screamed. The last SEAL sprinted toward the ramp, dodging a top. Barrage of gunfire. Kara dove, screaming past, the hog's roar deafening. A wall of fury keeping the enemy frozen in place. The final soldier was aboard. Danielle slammed the ramp shut, just as a mortar round exploded yards away. The Chinook lifted, blades thrashing, carrying the SEALs into the night. Kara watched them ascend, relief mixed with desperation, knotting her stomach. She had no fuel to follow, no way to return. The hog was dead weight now, a crippled warbird, barely clinging to the sky. "Go," she whispered to herself. "Go home." Enemy soldiers, realizing the SEALs had escaped, began advancing toward the hog. Kara twisted the stick, forcing a violent climb, banking low again. Smoke streamed from her engines, the airframe groaning with every move. She dove directly at the nearest enemy vehicle, forcing it to swerve, skid, crash. She was a phantom, a force of nature, a Valkyrie in its purest form. Then, the left engine sputtered and died. The hog lurched violently. Sparks flew from the fuselage. Warnings screamed. Control surfaces were unresponsive. Gravity was pulling, relentless. Kara's mind raced. Options were gone. Altitude too low for conventional ejection. No fuel for power. No ammo for distraction. She closed her eyes for a heartbeat, then opened them. She would not fall alone. She steered Valkyrie toward a ridge, carefully, impossibly, weaving between trees, shedding the remaining speed. The canopy steamed over. She could feel the metal twisting beneath her hands. The hog was alive by sheer will, but it was dying. Her target, a flat clearing near the edge of the ridge, barely visible through smoke and darkness. If she could get it there, she might survive the landing. She pushed the throttle, coaxing the remaining engine to its last. Valkyrie screamed, metal shrieking in protest. She banked, corrected, and finally touched down, rough, violent, but intact. Wheels skidded over rocks. Trees ripped past her wingtips. Silence. The hog came to rest, battered, scarred, but still upright. Smoke poured from the engine, but the cockpit remained whole. Kara exhaled, trembling, hands shaking, sweat soaking her flight suit. From the ridge, she watched the Chinook fade into the night with the seals aboard. Daniel's voice came over her headset, ragged but alive. "Valkyrie, you did it. You saved us all." Kara's lips curved into a weary smile. "Don't thank me, just live." The wind blew through the canyon. Fires burned in the valley below, casting long shadows of death and survival. For a moment, the world seemed to breathe with her, acknowledging the impossible. She climbed out of the cockpit, knees weak, body trembling, and stared at the hog, the warbird that had carried her, and the lives of a dozen soldiers through hell. A laugh escaped her lips, raw, shaken, free. She had survived. They had survived. The valley was quieting now. The enemy had retreated, broken by the fury of a single determined pilot. The SEALs were safe, alive, carried to extraction by steel. And courage. Kara sank to the ground beside the hog, breathing in the night, exhausted. She had flown the last flight of Valkyrie, a machine, yes, but also a symbol of relentless resolve. The first rays of dawn streaked the sky, painting the valley gold. Smoke and fire mingled, but so did hope. And Kara whispered to herself, softly, "We made it." The valley, once a tomb, had become a testament. A story of survival, courage, and the thunderous roar of a Valkyrie who refused to fall.